Have you ever had a Power App break or you're not able to update it because no co-owner was assigned and that person left the company? Well, don't worry, I'm going to show you in this video how you can use Power Automate and the Power Platform Admin Connector to change the owner of a Power App. I'll walk you through how it's done right after this. So if you get into that situation where someone leaves the company, no co-owner is assigned in the Power App, and you need to change the ownership, we can leverage Power Automate. But we can also use this approach to be proactive. Ideal use case would be to be proactive about that, and before someone is leaving a company that owns a bunch of Power Apps, you would go through this process and set a new owner. So let's walk through how we do it. We have this training portal application and I'm the owner. So say that I left the company and we need to assign a new owner. We'll go to Power Automate and we'll create a new flow by clicking on the My Flows tab, selecting New Flow, and we'll do an instant cloud flow. So we'll use this manually trigger a flow option because it gives us a way on demand to be able to execute a flow. So we're going to click that, click create. We'll rename the flow here in the upper left-hand corner instead of untitled to set Power App owner. And we'll add a new step. We'll see what connector we're going to be using to be able to change the ownership of the app. Here in the search box, if we do a search for Power, one of the options that you'll see here is Power Apps for Admins. So we'll select this connector, and you'll notice on here there's no diamond icon, which means this is a standard connector, so we don't have to have any additional licensing to use it. And we'll see all the different actions that we have. So there's lots that we can do with this connector. The one we want to be able to change ownership is Set App Owner. Now when we add this connector, we see there's a few pieces of information that we need to get to be able to run this. First, we need the environment name. Then we need the name of the Power App and the name of the new app owner. So let me walk you through how to get these key pieces of information we need to be able to change the ownership. To get this information, we're going to go back to make.powerapps.com. Now in the upper right hand side, we'll see this gear icon. If we select that, it'll open up our settings menu. And we want to go to this Developer Resources tab. This gives us all the details that we need to be able to put in that action in Power Automate. So we'll copy our environment ID here. We'll go back to Power Automate and paste that in our environment name field. Now it needs the app ID. So we're going to go back to make.powerapps.com and scroll through the list of apps and get to the app that we want to change the ownership of. So it's this My Training app. I'm going to click on the three dots next to that app and go to Details. And this is what we want right here, this app ID GUID. So we'll copy that and paste that here in the Power Apps name field. The last thing that we need is the Power Apps owner name. Now you'll see here it's expecting a principal object ID. So this means we can't simply put in the email address or display name of the user. We have to go hunt for that principal object ID value. Now we can get this through the Azure AD portal, but what if you don't have access to that? I'm going to show you a different way that we can get this without having to go into Azure at all. So above our Set App Owner action, we're going to click on this plus button. And we'll add a new action. Let's do a search for user. We'll use the Office 365 users connector and it's get user profile action. Here in the user UPN field, we can enter an email address. So I want to transfer ownership to David Warner, so I'll paste in his email here. And now if we expand out the set app owner action and go into that new Power App owner, we can look at our dynamic content window and see all the additional details about the user that get user action gave us. So the property that we want is this ID property. So we're going to select that. Now we're good to go. So let's give this a save. And before we run this, let's just look at our application here and let's click the share button just to see what the current ownership is, just to prove to you that right now I am the only owner. Now I'll go back here to Power Automate and we can use the built-in testing capability to see if this is going to run properly. So we're going to click test, we'll choose manual and select test again. So it's going to sign us in, validate the connectors that are using it. Now all we have to do is click continue and run flow. So now it's going to show me a live preview of everything that's happening inside of the flow. So it looks like it got that profile information and it looks like it successfully ran that set app owner. So we see all the information that was filled out. Now the ultimate test will go back to our Power App and we'll make sure to do a refresh here on the details page of this app. And now if we click share, I see that I have been demoted to user and David is now the owner of this application. So what I just demonstrated here is good for kind of those one-to-one, I need to change the owner of a single application. But what if you're wanting to be proactive, like I mentioned earlier, and automatically change the ownership of several applications before someone leaves the company? Let me show you how we can slightly tweak our flow to be able to accommodate for that. So we're going to leave the manual trigger as the option. We'll keep our get user profile to get the details of the person that we want to make the new co-owner. But now we're going to add a new step here, and we're going to go back to our Power Apps admin connector, and then we're going to choose this Get Apps as Admin option. This allows us to get all of the applications in a particular environment. So we can paste in our environment name that we copied earlier, and that's really all we need to fill out here. Now this is going to return all the applications in our environment, so we need to do an additional step of filtering this to say only applications owned by David. So maybe I want to do the opposite and change applications that David is the owner of and make myself the owner of. So let's see how we do that filtering. Now you might think we'll add a new step, maybe we'll do an apply to each, and then maybe we'll do a condition to filter it. We could do it that way, but perhaps a more efficient way is to add a new step, and if we search for a filter, we can do this filter array. So this allows us to put in an array, which is what is returned when we do the Get Apps as Admin action. So in the array to filter from text box, we can choose the value object here from our Get Apps as Admin action. Then within this filter array action, we can do a filter condition. So we can say where, and in our dynamic content window, let's do a search for owner. So there's a few different properties that this Get Apps as Admin action gives us about the owner of the application. So we can get their display name, email, and ID. So since we're already using the ID earlier in our flow, let's match on this owner principal user ID. So we'll select this field from our dynamic content. Then we'll say is equal to, and let's do a search for ID, and we'll use the ID from our Get User Profile action above, which is the user principal ID of David, whose email address is what I have listed in there. So now we'll have our filter to only return the applications that David is an owner of. The last step is to loop through all of those results and then do what we did before and change the app owner. So we'll add a new step after we have our filter array, and we will do an apply to each here. In the output of our apply to each, we'll choose the body of our filter array action. Now we'll add an action inside of the apply to each. We'll search for our Power Apps for Admins connector again, and we'll choose the Set App Owner action. Now let's fill out our details of environment name. We'll grab our Power App name here again, and we'll paste that in. And now for the new app owner, I'm doing the opposite of what we did before because I don't want to change all the apps in my environment and make me not the owner. So let me add in actually another Office 365 users action here, and we'll do the Get User Profile action again. And I'm going to paste in my email address here. And I'm going to rename this since we have two of these same actions, just so I know that this one is Get April's Info. Now that we have that in my apply to each in the Set App Owner action for the new app owner, let's set that to my user ID from the Get April's Info Office 365 Users Connector action. So again, fairly straightforward. We're going to get applications as admin for a particular environment. We're going to do our filter array where the ID of the owner equals the ID of the person that we want to change their ownership. We'll do an apply to each, looping through that filter array, and we'll set our app owner to the person we want to change to the owner. So let's give this one a save, and we'll do a test. So we see our green check marks, which I love about Power Automate. So if we expand out our filter array, we can click the show raw outputs and see everything that it returned. So it looks like it got that correctly. Now if I expand out our apply to each, it did in fact get the one item which he's the owner of. And it looks like the set app owner ran successfully and set me back as the owner. So again, ultimate test will refresh the app details page of this training application, and we'll go back to the share. And now you see I am set back as the owner and David is a user. So now you know how we can set the app owner for a single Power App and how to loop through a bunch of applications in an environment and change the owners. Now, Power Automate isn't the only way to do this. We can use the Power Platform PowerShell commandlets to do the same thing, and we can use the Microsoft Power Platform Center of Excellence Starter Kit. So if you already have the Center of Excellence Starter Kit installed in your environment, this might be the easiest way because there's actually a Power App included in the COE Starter Kit that allows you to select different apps and change the app owner. So there's multiple different ways to go about it. I would say probably the COE way, if you already have that installed and configured, is the easiest. And the Power Automate method that I just showed would be the second easiest. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please hit that thumbs up button, and I'll catch you in the next video.